In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how you can set up the color profiles in InDesign, and this would be the Adobe Creative Cloud 2014 version, so that you can print in the computer labs at the School of Art and Design at SDSU, at least for optimal printing on the large format Epson printer. Okay, so before you do anything, the first thing you need to do is go up to the Apple and choose System Preferences, and we need to make sure that the display profile that we're using under Displays and then under Color is correct. So right now I've got all these different ones, and you can't see it probably in this video, but every time I switch from one of these profiles, my color changes dramatically on my screen. And so you want to choose the one that's been calibrated to our computer displays. So what we have here is one called Art Lab 2014-0702.ICC. It might be a different name that your teacher's giving you if this video is older than the current profile that we've created, but at the time of this video, that's the one that you need to use. So go ahead and set that, and what that's going to do is it's going to set the color cast in your display so that as you're choosing colors, you can actually see about the best proximity as to how they would print on our printer. So anyway, go ahead and open your file, and one of the things that you need to know is that if you've ever done this in Illustrator, it's going to be a little bit different in that Illustrator and Photoshop require that you only use one color space and one color mode. And when I say color mode, it would be like RGB versus CMYK. Alright, those are two different color models. So in InDesign, it actually allows you to use two different color models at the same time. So it's a little bit more confusing, but for the purposes of what you're going to need to do in our classes for printing on our printer, I'm going to show you what you need to do. Okay, so first thing that I'm going to recommend that you do is, just so that when you're choosing colors, if you know that the final destination of the print is going to be on our printer and not like at some other press where they're going to have the ability of doing Pantone and stuff like that, go ahead and open up your color palette, your colors, not swatches necessarily, but your color palette, and in this dialog box, choose RGB, so that whenever you go to choose and select colors, that at least you're choosing RGB ones, because when we go and output to our JPEG, we're going to be outputting as an RGB file, which is what the native color model is for the printer that we're using, and it's less likely to have weird color shifts later. Okay, so that's one of the first things you can do. If you haven't already done that, don't freak out. It's not a big deal, but anyway, that's the way to get your truest color. And the places where you're going to have the biggest shifts are places like in the sort of magenta areas, or in like really cyan, like a heavy deep cyan color. Alright, so the first thing that you want to do up here under Edit, in terms of assigning your profile, is go down to where it says Assign Profiles, and where it says RGB Profile, you're going to click on Assign Profile, click on the drop down, and you're going to choose that Art Lab 2014 color profile. Okay, now don't freak out if you see the CMYK profile down here. Don't worry about that. What you really need to be paying more attention to is this RGB profile, and you want to set that here. Okay, like I said, you can have two separate profiles in InDesign. It's sort of a strange concept, and it's actually quite complicated, so I'm not going to go into that, but just make sure you set this here. And then go ahead and, if you want, you can do preview. You're not really going to see much of a difference, but go ahead and click OK. And that should go ahead and set up your profile. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be exporting out to a JPEG, but I just want to show you something just so that you're aware of it. If you go into File and you go to Print, let's say you're printing directly from where is print? There we go. Let's say that you're printing directly from a computer to, one of these printers, like maybe you went and bought a nice printer at home and it's an RGB kind of printer, something like that. One of the things that you can pay attention to if you're going to print directly from the application is go down where it says Output, and then you can see here that it right now is set to print in a 4-color process. So you can change the way that you're going to end up printing, like in your output section. We're not going to deal with that. What we are going to do instead is we're going to go up to, say, File, and then we're going to go down here to Export. Alright, and I'm going to click this drop down here, and I'm not going to make this an interactive PDF. I'm going to actually go down here where it says JPEG, and we're going to end up making this like a high resolution JPEG, okay, and give it a name and hit save. And unlike Illustrator, you're not going to have to define an artboard. It's going to go based off of your document setup details. So we're going to say export, and you can range all if you want, you know, whatever you've got in your spreads or however. If you're doing this for our printer, you're probably just printing a poster, so it's just, you're not going to have to deal with spreads. You're going to have a page. Now what you care about is where it says quality, you want maximum, and because it's going to be, you know, the lowest level of compression, the maximum quality. For resolution, you're going to change this to 365. That's the optimal for our printer. And then you're going to keep the color space as RGB. Now you want to make sure that it says embed that color profile that we assigned to it. Alright, and then anti-alias, and then if you want to use your document bleed settings, whatever, don't worry about simulate over print. And then just go ahead and export. And then when you're done, what you're going to see on your desktop is that picture. And now what I'd recommend to do is open this in Photoshop and take a picture of it and make sure it's going to look the way you expect it to. And you're not going to be looking at it at 8.33% or whatever crazy stupid resolution or percentage it zoomed you out. You want to not fit it to screen. You actually want to look at it at 100%, and you want to look at the quality of your vectors that got, you know, turned into raster graphics, and make sure that these lines are nice and crisp. That's where your resolution is really important. Like if you were to have saved it out at like 150 ppi versus 365, you would have much fuzzier, softer edges. Okay, so these are the places where it really matters. Now, saving much over 365 isn't really going to do you any good because our printer isn't, the way that we have it set up, it's optimal for 365. Okay, so if you wanted to zoom out, you know, you could zoom out for the purpose of moving around more easily. This is completely a vector file, so it's really easy to see the quality. If I had raster graphics in here, I would want to zoom in and make sure at 100%, not higher. Higher than 100% doesn't matter because it's only going to print at 100%. I would want to make sure that my raster graphics look good, that the resolution was good, that it didn't look blown out or anything. And then lastly, before you close this up, go up here to image, and I want you to go to image size. And what I want you to look at is the print dimension to resolution ratio, okay? Or not ratio, but relationship. So ideally it should say the size in inches that you intended to print it at the resolution. If for some crazy reason it looks like this, okay, where it says the resolution is 72 and it's going to print at nearly 66 inches wide and, you know, nearly 8 feet tall, then you need to change that before you submit that to have it be printed, because I'm going to send it back to your teacher and say the student didn't do something right. Just make sure that you check this once it's exported. All you have to do if it looks like this to change it is you don't go here and change it while only the width and height are constrained, because then it's going to really jack your image up. You want to click on resample to turn it off. You want to, or I should say deselect resample, so that all three of these things are constrained: width, height, and resolution. That means it's not going to actually change the amount of data or the dimensions up here in pixels. It's not going to throw any of the data away. It's just going to reorganize how it compresses it. So you're basically going to go here to resolution if it's messed up, and you're going to say 365, and you'll see here that it automatically adjusts the width and the height to the correct corresponding dimensions. Alright, so that's the last thing you need to do, and go ahead and submit it the way that your teacher tells you to submit it, and that's it.